Hey, y'all, welcome to another episode of the Two Young Pastors podcast, where two young pastors talk about spirituality and the Christian lifestyle from a pastor's perspective. I'm here joined by none other than our amazing, the illustrious, the insert any positive adjective, Jawan Sanders. Hey, bro, what's up, man?
Doing well, doing well. How are you, man?
I'm good. Man, I was watching and I kind of go through to see how our episodes are playing, and the
Mm.
episodes that are doing pretty well right now, man, are the ones that are a bit controversial. That have rage bait titles. I'm telling you, rage bait titles work. They work. They work.
Uh, which ones in particular? Which ones in particular did you see?
Like stop waiting on God. And can you trust the church with money? Like those are rage bait. Those are rage bait titles, bro.
Mm. Mm. I wonder if when they actually clicked on the video and started watching, if they saw that we were uh trying to create rage. Uh I don't think when we actually talked, it was rage. It was rage.
Yeah.
Uh but I think what we want to talk about today, I hope that our topic today, rather than it being something that people click on because of rage, they click on it because they want something hopeful and something to look forward to. And so
Yeah.
I'm happy because today, um, it's taken us a long time to probably get to this topic, but we want to
Mm.
talk about purpose. We want to talk about
Yeah.
purpose today,
Yeah.
um, because I think that as an individual, and whether you are a leader, whether you are a believer, no matter who you are, the reality is that we all have a purpose. We all have a purpose, and
Right.
I think it's crucial for us to acknowledge it and to be able to realize it, so that we can walk in it as soon as possible. And
Right.
Elijah, what I think many of us are dealing with, the fact that we're not actually like walking in our realist purpose. And you got people just living out here, or just
Mhm.
surviving, when they really should be, as people often
Ri
say, thriving. And so,
right.
Matt, want to talk about purpose today. I want to talk about purpose, and I want to ask you a question. I guess the question I want to start off with is like, when did you realize that you had a purpose?
Bro, I first heard about purpose when, like, pastors would always say, "Hey, you are created for a purpose. Like God made you on purpose, well, for a purpose, right?" And it was like, "Yeah, like that makes sense." And then it was like really trying to spend the rest of my life trying to figure out what that was. My parents would always say, "Hey, we prayed to God to have a son, and then we had you, and then we dedicated you to then go ahead and be in ministry." So they always kind of threw that as my purpose was to always be in ministry, and that was amazing. Like that was a purpose that they thought that they believed that God had given me to them for. It
Mm,
was to give back. So I was raised from a very young age to say, hey, this is your purpose. You can do whatever you want outside of that, but this is your main purpose.
yeah.
And what I got from that is in high school, I would always struggle between what to do because I knew that you kind of had to look through and get uh, different um, perspectives and different jobs, right? Because I would always have like job fairs in high school and things like that. But what I ended up thinking of is, well, do I have to pick one? Like, why can't I go ahead and pick like I want to do multiple things? And then they were like, well, you have to get a degree to do certain jobs. I was like, well, that makes sense. And then I was trying to do both things. I was trying to be in ministry and then be in the Air Force at the same time, because my parents were like, yo, you're in ministry, we want to do this for you, blah, blah, blah. And that kind of worked until I got into college, and then in college was when it really changed a bit, where it's like, all right, I kind of have to pick one, and then I sat back and let God determine what the future would look like. And this is where a lot of us get messed up with is instead of doing the groundwork and asking God to finish the rest in purpose, our purpose, we think we can find it if we sit down and then let God direct us to it. That is not the story that I have. I have the story of I heard things from my family. I try to put it into practice. And then when I couldn't do anything further, I couldn't expand further, I couldn't go further, I had to sit down and then I had to let God open up those doors. But a lot of what Christians do, bro, is we sit down before doing any work.
Yeah.
Like, we expect God to do so much in our life when we have not put anything into our own life. And yes, God can do some amazing things, bro. Right? Like God can turn around lives from nothing into something. Right? Like God can do all those things because we believe in an awesome, powerful God.
Yeah.
But a lot of what happens in my life, and I think really throughout the biblical narrative, is people that can make good choices, right, and have made good choices in their life, which is I think the majority of us, right? Like the majority of us have made pretty good choices. And in those instances, which is the normal, it is it is it's a malpractice. We're doing spiritual malpractice when we
Yeah.
sit down and ask God to open up doors that we have not put any work into getting to. And that is not what I see in the biblical narrative. It hasn't been my testimony either, where I'm just in my room and then I get a job text saying like, "Hey, you want to like apply for the job I have?" But most of those have been scam texts, and I don't think God operates that way. But how about you, bro?
You know what's interesting, right, bro? But before I answer the question on like when I found out I had a purpose, you said when I asked you about purpose, you immediately tied it to a job.
Yeah,
And a lot of like what you were discussing and even like giving perspective about is, jobs. And I think when many individuals think about purpose, they immediately tie it to, well, what's my profession? What's my profession going to be? What's my vocation going to be?
that's true.
And I think that that is a very limited view
That's
of
true.
of purpose, because I think that that's it's a very American way of thinking, you know,
Yeah.
because many of us we tie our purpose and thus our value to the jobs that we have.
Mm,
But like I'm learning that our purpose um goes beyond our job. And so I'll say this, and I think I've said it before because you and I both had two different stories. And when we were
yeah.
talking about like how we even got into ministry, we were talking about the different roads that we traveled. And what's interesting is that while your family had been telling you, since you were a child, what they thought you were born to do, which was tied to pastoral ministry. My
Mhm,
family didn't. They didn't. It wasn't the same for me. You know,
mm,
um, I think that it was something that I had to figure out for myself. Um, and I getting extremely like biblical here, Christian here, okay? What I believe, you know, every believer, every Christian, every human, based on what the Bible teaches us, like we were born, right, to testify of the goodness of God.
amen.
Okay.
Yeah,
Like that's how we live. How we
yeah,
live should glorify, it should bring glory to God. It should reflect how good God is, how loving God is. That's why we were created. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
That's what Paul talks about in Ephesians when he talks about us being created. Like we bring glory to God. Like we are his workmanship. And so
right,
when we live our lives out, by the end of it, by the end of our life, we should be able to look back and say, man, I lived a life that testifies of the goodness of God, right?
yeah, yeah,
And I guess how we do that, right?
mhm,
How we do that, how we go about doing that will be different depending on our circumstances and depending on uh uh the 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 life and the atmospheres that we are involved in.
We're in.
But I
Yeah.
think that on a base level, I believe that each of us were called to somehow, some way, show people the love of God. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And I think that that's important, right? And here's why. Because we talked, you already talked about like some mistakes that people get into. I want to say this, bro. You know, when we tie our purpose to a job, a lot of times what we can either do is either stifle ourselves, because what do you do if you don't get that job?
Mm.
What do you do if you can't get into that career field?
Yeah.
You know, there are so many individuals who I've seen blame God and say, God, I thought I was called to do this. I thought I was supposed to be a doctor. I thought I was supposed to be a teacher, and I can't get the job. And so we go back and we say, God, why are you putting me through this particular thing? And
Mhm.
it causes a lot of trouble. It causes a
Yeah.
lot of trouble and a
Yeah.
lot of existential crises that we don't necessarily have to go through. Where
Right.
we're blaming God for things that it's not really God's problem. It's not really God's
Right.
problem. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But in addition to that, I think we also stifle our progress,
Mm.
because I think for many of us, we can kind of sort of create like this plot line of what our life is supposed to look like.
Mhm.
And at times, truth be told, Elijah, what I've learned, and I was talking to Janelle about this yesterday, at times we don't always know what's best for us, you know. But like specifically, I was talking to Janelle about the fact that, like, hey, I know I want to go back to school, but like my problem is like I still got people pleasing tendencies. I still got like, wanting to be approved by other people. And so I was like, I want to go back to school, but I want to go to a particular school. Like getting the degree is the most important thing.
Right.
But for me, I was confusing the finished goal of getting the degree with like the responses that I would be receiving from people when I tell them what school I went to. So specifically,
Mm.
right, I was like, man, I want to go back to school, but I like the sound of how when you tell people you went to Howard University, they say, Howard, you're a Howard grad,
Right.
huh? And so like, me caring about, getting the approval and getting the, oh, that's good, from other people,
Yeah.
that's conflicting with the goal of, hey, you really just need those letters behind
Mm.
your name so that you can
Mm.
walk in a particular area,
Yeah.
walk into a particular sphere.
That's
And
true.
so, at times I realize we don't know what's good for us. And so while we're thinking, hey, it has to be done this way and it has to look like this, God could be saying, well, what if I want you to grow in this area?
Right.
Because what if the plan that I have for your life, what if the plan I have for your life, the purpose that I have for your life,
Mhm.
you need to learn patience in this area
Mhm.
rather than learning recognition in this area? What if you need to learn forgiveness in this place rather than needing to learn, uh, 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 let's say, kindness in this place?
Yeah.
Because you're not ready for kindness. Maybe you're ready for
Mm.
forgiveness, but you're not ready for kindness just yet.
That's
You
good.
know, and it's just understanding like the timing. And I'm not saying that it has to be like a specific thing, but just understanding that there's some flexibility when it comes to God, and God may shift you because God knows when you're ready for certain things and when you're not ready for certain things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so all that is to say, bro,
Yeah.
while your parents had told you that, I think it took me until like my 11th grade year in high school for me to, and that's about 16 years old, 15, 16 years old, right?
Right.
For me to figure out, I at least want to go into ministry and I at least want to help bring people to God.
Yeah.
But up until that point, I think I thought my purpose was to help people from a psychological lens. I thought my purpose was to help individuals kind of sort of find themselves and understand why they do what they do, which is why I wanted to go into psychology in the first
Right.
place.
Right.
And so that would be my response. But it looked like you about to
You
say something, bro.
you brought up some really interesting things, bro, that I just want to clarify
Mhm.
as someone is listening. You're saying that you can have, number one, you could be called to multiple things. Right. You can be called to not like your calling is not just your work. Because people say calling and purpose. sometimes those are kind of overlapped, right? But your purpose, number one, is not just to work, right?
Yes.
Like that's a very Western American mindset, right? That if you're
Yes.
not if you're not outputting anything, then you have no value because like we put value on even life, right?
Yeah.
And there's a numerical value that we put on life, and you're saying that our purpose is not just to work, like there's
Yeah.
purpose outside of work.
Certainly. I mean, I'll go as far as to say this. I don't really like how we use the word calling,
Yeah,
because I think we mystify it a little bit too much, or we over spiritualize it a little
yeah,
too much.
I agree.
Um, it's easy for pastors to say that, right? Because we know what we're doing spiritual work,
Yeah,
but like I'll make it as plain as this: whatever space you are in life, you are called to do that thing.
yeah,
Like so, like when we're in school, we're called to be students. We're not called to be CEOs of a business. We're called to be students.
yeah,
At home, we're called to be a son or a daughter. If we have children, if we decide to have children, we're now called to be a parent, and a
right,
good one at that.
right.
And so I would say that whatever decision you make, you immediately now have to, like, there's a calling that's attached to that. And the first calling that many of us um will just, if you're a Christian and you're possibly born into a Christian household, the first calling that you're probably going to understand, at least that you'll want your child to accept, is the call of being a Christian, a believer, you know?
Right.
And I think that as you mature in life, that call or the understanding of what that responsibility, right? What it looks like, it will mature and it will grow as you grow. And so
Right.
I think the purpose is always kind of sort of like the very foundation. We all understand that each of us has a purpose, right? And that purpose is to testify the goodness of God. And how we choose to do that, I think that that's what's different for each and every single one of us. And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
think that we should not mix up an assignment with purpose,
And
right?
that's so good. Yeah, that's actually what so like what's crazy is I have a sermon called Your Calling is a Process.
Yeah.
And what you just said is kind of the thesis of that entire sermon, is that you are not just what you do, but you are called to be faithful in the situation that you're in right there. Exactly like you said, and it's a process, right? At the same time that you're a student, you might be working at the front desk, right? And you have to be faithful, show up on time, right? Make sure that you're doing your duties correctly. If you're calling, right? If you're a student, make sure you're on class. You're showing up to class on time, right?
Yeah.
You're turning in your assignments. Like what is being faithful to your calling is making sure that you're hitting those metrics of success at the right time. And
Yeah.
what's even crazier, bro, is when people are asking God to do greater things with them. And when I say your calling is a process, is number one, yeah, right. Like God has a purpose for you,
Mhm.
right? And sometimes your family inspires that in you. But really, I found that some individuals really are the blessing, right,
Mhm.
that God has given to certain families because they've been prayed over. So your calling might be really at a very young age is to be the best son or daughter or the best like grandchild possible.
Yeah. And so I think, like, I love what you're saying, because it's it's taking the focus away from the major things that society pushes, right? Because, like, from a young age, I think we're always pushed to be a particular thing, right?
Right.
We're always pushed to look ahead. There are so many of us when we were kids, that kind of sort of had this idea, or we learned this idea that, oh, I don't matter until I do this thing.
Hmm.
I'm not important, or I won't be as valuable until I
Can.
go to get accepted into the school, until I get this job, until
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get into this relationship. Where God's like, no, I have purpose and I have value, like, in you right now.
Hmm.
Like, you have the opportunity to be a good child right now. You have the ability to be a good friend right now. You
Right.
have the ability to be a great student right now. And if we simply, like, teach individuals, like, the value of really pouring into people and showing how good they are just where they are, I think that that would change a lot of people.
Right.
Like, that
Most
would change
definitely.
our society from thinking that I need to always get to the next and
Right.
accomplish the next, to valuing and being able to realize the good that's within their season and the good that's within their setting right now, their context right now.
And so in that same sermon, exactly what you just said is
Yeah.
like my next point that I go into
Oh, shoot.
is where how in the parable when the master comes back in the parable of the
The
talents.
talents.
Yeah. The, the master comes back and say, hey, you have been faithful with few. Now I will make you an overseer of much.
Yeah.
Right. And I always tell individuals, right, it's like, hey, if you're asking God for much, right, are you faithful with the few you have right now? So like I told students at a convention, I think 2 weeks ago, I said, hey, if you're asking God to be a millionaire, right, and there's no problem with asking God to be a millionaire and bless you financially, right,
Yeah.
I said, are you faithful with the couple $100 you have right now? Are you able to manage that? Are you able to be able to budget yourself? Because God, at the end of the day, and this is what got me. God, at the end of the day, his number one priority is to save you.
Hmm.
Everything else, the blessings, right? The house, the car, the the material, the friends, the family, everything else is auxiliary to saving your soul. Like
Yeah.
his priority is not to bless you, to give you what you want right now, but really to help you to get closer to him and then ultimately make it and live with him forever,
Yeah.
right? So we're asking God for some stuff, but God's like, hey, can I give you, can I trust you with this so much that it won't then cause a barrier to your eternal life?
Yeah.
And for a lot of us, is we're not ready to handle $1 million spiritually.
Yeah.
We're not ready because the moment God gives you what you want, we don't have the good habits to handle the next the next phase that we're asking God for and God to do in our life. And I always tell individuals this because I learned this. I was like, God will keep you where you are until you're faithful in the purpose that you are called to right now. So I always tell people, if you're dating somebody, right, and you're looking for a marriage relationship, right? I was like, hey, are you good to the siblings around you right now? Are you able to treat your parents with respect even when you disagree with them?
Yeah.
If you can do that, right, then you can treat a stranger that walks into your life with respect.
Yeah.
And someone, if we can't treat the blood that we're connected to with some dignity and respect, how are we supposed to treat someone that we have to choose
Yeah.
to be in our life with some dignity and respect? So I always like tell, hey, are you faithful with where you are right now? If you're not showing up to class on time, what makes you think that you'll show up to your 9 a.m. meeting on time?
Yeah. And here's the thing, bro. I'm learning that in life, uh, a number of times we're not faithful, or
Right.
we're not the best students, right? And here's the thing: life is not fair. I'll also say that, like,
It's not.
life is not fair. Okay, because I, like, as you were talking, I was hearing a person's response possibly say, "Well, I have been faithful, and it's still not working out." And I want to share with you, life is not fair. You know, there are a lot of rich people who got there not because of hard work, but they got there
No,
because of
connections.
nepotism
Yeah.
and connections. You know, there are forces in the world that makes it so that not as many people can have a certain quality of life, right? There are more poor people in the world than there are rich people. And so we understand that life is not fair. Yet I don't think that, you know, we the aim is to do good things only because we want good results,
That's
right?
it. Yeah.
And I understand that I'm saying that from a place of privilege because I have not had the hardest of hard lives. Yes, I've had challenges in my life, but I've had friends who've had even more challenges, and
Mhm.
they did not overcome because because that's what they're supposed to do. They overcame their circumstances in spite
In
of
spite of, yeah.
what they went through. You know, and you know, I know you already you were saying this, you know, that you need to be faithful, right? And in order for you to accomplish or live out, or to be able to be in progress to living out your purpose, you need to learn how to be to make the most out of the season that you're in, to be a good steward of whatever season that you're in. But it really got me thinking, well, what are some other reasons why individuals fail? One, to either identify what their purpose is or to live out the purpose that they see for themselves? That's a question that I really want to ask
Mm,
because I think that's the direction that we're getting into. And I think
yeah.
you laid out the first one, but I also want to ask, you know, what are some other reasons that individuals either fail to identify that they have a purpose or they fail to live out the purpose that they've already identified for themselves?
Man, I think one of it is self-worth. I think some individuals don't realize that God has put so much value in who they are, regardless of what they have done, that
Mm,
they're still called to be a good like we're talking about like family instances,
yeah,
but not even in like a family instance, but really like if we don't have enough self-worth in who we are as individuals, right, then we're not able to see where we are right now.
yeah,
And a lot of it is, hey, what I do right now does not matter.
yeah,
And really it does. It might not be the most flashiest thing. It might not be the most prized thing. And like you might have a below average what we call a prestigious job,
yeah,
right? Or you might be in a community college, right? And it might not be the greatest college in the world, right? But you're there, you have something to do.
yeah,
Be cognizant, be self-aware that what you're doing right now has worth, because the greatest thing that you can invest in is yourself
yeah,
and in building up those habits. So even if you are in in high school or in college, right, and you're still trying to figure out what to do with your life, you like the greatest thing that you can invest in is just a good work ethic,
yeah,
really. Like having good times to study, right? Or if you're in a job right now and you want to grow, right, and you hate your job, right? like 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 invest in yourself, read a book, right? Like have time where you're building yourself out, prioritize things that not only make you feel good but build you up as well. I think self-worth is one of them, bro, and then I think the other one is some of us have too much of an ego.
mm,
um and what I mean by that is we want to escape the place that we're in right now because we think that we're better than that.
yeah,
And we're like, hey God, like, or not even God, it's just like I know that I'm better than this place I am right now. And again, that kind of goes back. It's like two spectrums. We don't value ourselves enough, right? And then on
absolutely.
the other side of the spectrum is you're putting too much value in who you are, when really all of us have places that we can grow in.
Pride
And
and
some of
insecurity.
pride, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. It's the two opposite ends of the spectrum, pride and then low insecurity,
yeah,
or insecurity in general. That low self-esteem, that gets you there, man. That
Yeah.
gets you. That gets you. And I agree, bro. There have been several people, even me. I can't tell you how many times I have catastrophized a situation, or
Mhm.
I have not made the most of a situation because I was afraid that I would not be good enough.
Mm.
You I've literally I've procrastinated, and this is what procrastination is about. You Sometimes we procrastinate
Mm.
because
Yeah.
we think so much about what could go wrong and how individuals might not receive us, and why our product that we create may not be good enough, that we stay stuck and we stay paralyzed, until, and I think you probably can relate to this, until like it's crunch time,
Yeah.
and it's last minute, it's the 11th hour, and we put something together. And the crazy thing is that for many of us, we we learn this in school. We put things off until the last minute from school.
Yeah.
And the thing is we learn, oh, I finessed it, because you probably got an A,
Yeah.
and you're probably a great finesser,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You probably got a B. You probably got down to a D, because I know that in some places a D is passing. But the thing is like, in addition to the low self worth, we kind of sort of begin to build habits and paradigms around low self esteem. And when we build practices and habits around it, we carry it from one stage of life to the next stage. And we think that we can continue to put things off until the last minute.
Yeah.
We think that we can continue to hold things off. And you say, hey, it worked then, so it could probably work now.
Mhm.
And the thing is you probably got an A in one area in your life, and you probably got an A in another area. But
Mhm.
it does not necessarily mean that you will always get an A in this next phase of life.
Yeah.
And so I think that, as a person who's seen it and who has tasted defeat a few times because of it, I think that that's something that really gets in our way. That's something that really gets in our way. And the last thing
Man.
I'll say is this, bro. Oh, you look like you about to say something?
No, so what's so funny is I was on a date and
Ooh,
I was sharing with this person. I was like, "Yeah, I'm a pastor." And they're like, "Oh, cool." Well, they knew that I was a pastor before. They're like,
yeah.
"Hey, what how do you put together your sermons?" And then I said, "Well, like you're traditionally supposed to do this on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, and then Friday." And then I said, "But sometimes like this was like maybe like 3 years ago. Like I said, if you're really in crunch time, right, you kind of do it sparsely all between the week, and then Friday you kind of like hunker down and you finish it." And then she said, "Oh, you procrastinate." And then I was like
She called it. She
I
called
was
it.
like, "No." I was like, "That's just my process." And then she said, "No, like you're," and I knew I could take her word for it is because she's a psychologist. And she said like, "Nah, like you're procrastinating." And then I said, "Well, I kind of do my best work, under pressure." And then she like very gently like leaned over and held my hand and she's like, "You're lying to yourself."
Sheesh, sheesh, sheesh.
And she said, "You're telling that to yourself uh because you're procrastinating and you can do a much better job if you don't procrastinate." And then that like hit me right here. We ended up not working out, but God was speaking to me right then and there. And I
That's right.
gotta say that hit me and I've gotten better.
Yeah.
But like I needed someone to look me bold face and just say, "Hey, this is what you're doing." Uh and it's gotten better.
And let me say this, right? Let me say this. So I'm happy that you said that, because what kills purpose, insecurity, low self esteem, right? Pride. Like, yes, there are some people who did not take the job at McDonald's because they got the degree, they got a whole bunch of things, and it's just like, I'm better than that, and it's just like,
Right.
well, praise God that you're better, and on your way to seeing or obtaining better, you can get this. But okay. But on top of those two things, we're learning that we also build habits and paradigms around these two foundations of
Mhm,
insecurity and pride, right? And habits that can catch up with us, and see, it can pop up in like the form of like procrastination, which is like a major one.
mhm,
That's a major one that can really impact so many of us, and see, I would also like to add this because there's so many nuggets here. One, our area, our atmosphere impacts so much,
mhm,
right? Um, why do we suffer from low self-esteem, and why do we have pride? It's because of the environment that we're in. A lot of times we learn to have low self-esteem from the people who are around us. We learn to have pride from the people who are around us, either from our
yep,
parents,
yep,
either from our siblings, maybe even from our church members. But the truth is that we pick up on behavioral patterns and we reflect these things from such a young age. Sometimes you may see your parent looking in the mirror and saying, I'm too fat, or I don't look good enough. Like, without realizing that, we internalize that. And years later, you're wondering, why instead of me being in the gym, am I just looking in the mirror saying, I'm still pudgy, and
mm,
and it's because you learned one thing from your parent, but you didn't learn the other thing
mhm,
because you
mhm,
saw your parent do that in the mirror, where they talk bad about themselves, but you didn't see them actually take the time to go to
and
the
then
gym,
go,
right? You learn pride where a parent says, hey, don't um, make sure that you don't embarrass me in public, right? Why? Because the Sanders family, and I'm not saying that this is a real life story, but like the Sanders family has a status. We have a status that we must live up to. And so you see them say that, and at church you look good, but you also see that when you get home, your parents are arguing and fussing at each other about what's not going right in their marriage. And so in public, you look good. You learn how to dress the right way. You learn how to have the best brands. You know how to put it together.
mhm.
But internally, the truth is you are a mess because
Mess,
your
yeah.
parents did not teach you how to have proper conversations with other people and with yourself,
That's
so
good.
that you blame other people for what's going wrong in your life and you rationalize your bad behavior like Pastor Elijah did with his sermon prep, and like I even do myself. Let's own
Yeah,
it. Let's
yeah.
own it. And the truth is that we are killing our own purpose.
Mm,
We're killing it. We're killing it. We're killing it. Because I think in order for us to accomplish and live out our purpose, like, it's all about stewardship. And I guess we that's probably the next thing that we have to talk about in an upcoming episode is like how to properly steward seasons, um, but and how to actually overcome obstacles truly. Uh, but it seems like no matter what, stewardship impacts how we accomplish a purpose if it is accomplished in our lives. And so, that's something that came up for me. What you thinking?
bro, this literally just popped up in my head.
Yeah.
And I've always had a form of this, but this movie kind of put it into perspective for me. What's that Netflix movie that came out? Well, I guess not Netflix movie. The two friends. It was like literally like 2 months ago.
I mean, it could be a
She had to
lot.
make a rent. Um,
Oh. It's not your day, or one of those days. One of them days.
yeah, yeah, and as I was watching that with Leah, bro, I
Kiki
was
Palmer SZA.
yeah, Kiki, yeah, yeah, bro. I was watching that and I was so frustrated with her friend. And I could tell that Kiki, her character had put all her time and all her effort into getting this thing done, and like literally
Spoiler alert.
pull.
Here's your spoiler alert. If you haven't seen One of Them Days, stop watching it. And if you still want to see it, you know,
It's good.
spoiler alert about to come. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. She had done everything that she could, bro. She worked at that diner, right? She got the job interview. Everything was lined up, right? And the one friend that she had that was close to her was literally her was a mess, and not just a mess, but it would spill over into Kiki's life, that it
Yes.
would stop her from accomplishing what she was trying to do. So much so that her interview for a manager position at corporate got hurt and
Derailed.
got completely derailed, and everything that she had done was just kind of thrown out. And I was watching the movie with Leah, bro, and Leah was so frustrated. She was like physically upset where
Yeah.
she kind of got up off the couch. She's like, "What is going on?" She's like, "Who has a friend like that? That that just continuously?" And she was like physically frustrated. And then I looked at her, and then in this moment, as you were speaking, like it kind of just dawned into me that we have purpose killers in our life, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just our habits, but it's friends
Yeah.
that are purpose killers.
Yeah.
That,
Atmosphere.
bro, it's crazy how people like can influence you, right, into making the wrong choice for you,
Yeah.
whether it's enabling your ego or enabling your self-worth, right?
Yeah.
They kind of enable you to make choices that don't build you up, but rather like pull you down back to their level and keep you there. And
Yeah.
that character, bro, like was like a just she's great, loving, wholesome, right? It was a movie, right? Like at the end, it ended up working out. But let's be honest, in real life, once you botch one of the best interviews that you have, odds are you won't have that chance again.
Yes. Yes.
And we have to be very mindful of purpose killers.
Yes.
That's kind of the the pastor term I'll put on that, right?
That's
Not
good.
just our ego, our insecurities, but friends, spaces. Like we
All
got to
these
be
things
very
are purpose
mindful.
killers
Yeah.
because we got mindsets. I mean, you got mindsets. You got systems. Like racism is a purpose killer.
Mhm.
Sexism is a purpose killer. We got systems that are bigger than us, and we got people. We got people. We
People,
got
man.
people. And be your own
People.
people. And so that's good. And so I'm happy that we could really talk about that because the truth is that some people they're probably watching and they're like, yeah, I recognize I've been struggling. I've been struggling in whatever situation, whatever season I'm in. I've been struggling.
Yeah.
And reality is you're probably struggling because a lot of times we don't necessarily know where the offense is,
Hmm.
you know, and the offense is often hiding.
Yeah.
But a part of like finding the solution is
Yeah. That's
being
true.
able to properly identify
Yeah.
and then acknowledging, what the problem actually is. Because I think you can find a problem, but until you actually accept and get real and say, okay, this is a problem and I
Yeah.
want to do something about it, like it'll stay a problem forever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy that we said that. And I guess now, want to give people hope, for like
Mhm.
the last few minutes that we're talking, what can we do? Like
Yeah.
how can we actually um get on track if we're off the rails? How
Mhm.
can we get back on the rails to making sure that we are living out our purpose? What are some best practices if you know any,
Yeah.
or what are some things that you just simply learned along the way to help you?
Man, it takes 2 weeks to make a action a habit.
Hmm.
So it takes generally around 2 weeks to make an action a habit. So if you're thinking about changing some habits in your life that are your purpose killers, the best thing that I found is that if you spend 2 weeks just consistently hammering that thing down and doing it consistently at a time or at a place, or even if it's words of affirmations, right, in the morning. If you are someone that doesn't have a lot of self worth, right? Like that, hearing the words out loud, not just thinking them, but speaking it out loud so that you can hear them. And then watching yourself as you're giving those words of affirmation. If you do it at a consistent time in the morning or at the end of a long day, I think that will help someone
Yeah.
if you're dealing with with low self-esteem.
Hmm.
And I would do it at the end of the day and at the beginning of the day because at the end of the day, after a long day, you might have some doubts about how you performed and how you did some stuff and how you spoke. Now, here's a caveat with that though.
Yeah.
If you if you just don't do affirmations to do affirmations, right? So if you messed up, acknowledge you messed up,
Yes.
right? Like don't
Yes.
don't 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 just cover it up with the affirmation, right? Like if you did not study for that test or for that meeting, right? And your entire presentation went wrong,
Yeah.
right? Uh, don't cover it up with the affirmation, right? Be honest with yourself and say, "Hey, I could have done better, but my self-worth is not tied in that failure."
Yeah.
Right? It's like, "Hey, I could have done better. Here's what I can do better next time when I have this assignment or when I have this meeting or appointment," right? But don't cover up mistakes with affirmations. Acknowledge the mistakes. The affirmation comes in saying, "Hey, this mistake does not define me. It's just a stepping stone into something else." I think that that's the best piece of advice I could give is don't cover up your mistakes,
That's
but don't
good.
let your failure stop you as well.
Yeah. What I'd like to add to that, there are a lot of us who don't have a lot of organization in our lives. Um, um, and so many of us are not as intentional with how we spend our day. And so, I've seen some individuals have to like uh, gather to-do lists, so that
Right. Yeah.
um, when they start their day, they give themselves a certain amount of time where they say, "Hey, what are my to-dos for today?" Or they probably
Mhm.
do it the previous night. What are my to-dos for the next day? That because there are many of us who kind of sort of just float through life, and we say, "Hey, I'm gonna wake up. I'm gonna wake up with just enough time so I can get to work. I'm gonna wake up with
Mm,
just enough time so I can make sure I make breakfast for the kids, or so that I can." Uh, Say this type of prayer for my children and possibly have this conversation or say this thing to my
yeah,
significant other spouse. Um,
yeah,
and we kind of sort of build our days around like what has worked without being intentional. But within that, we can miss a lot of different things.
yeah.
We can miss that things that can really help us to grow.
Mhm.
And this is the difference between surviving versus thriving.
Mm,
People who want to thrive and people who want to progress. There's some consistent accountability, and organization brings you accountability. And
right.
so I'm realizing that even in my life, there has to be some more organization. There has to be some more structure, which means that there has to be
Mhm,
barriers that are put in, boundaries that are set up
mhm.
so that you can hinder yourself from the things that can keep you from accomplishing certain goals,
Right,
right?
right, right, right.
Because
That's
your goal may not necessarily be um professional. It may not be school, right? You're older than teenage and young adult years.
yeah,
It could be something on your job, or it could be something in your family. You could be a husband or a wife, and you're not showing up the best way. You are hard-headed, or you stonewall, and when you have disagreements, you are not able to see things from the other person's perspective. And because of that, you are not doing well. You are not stewarding your purpose as a husband or a wife well. It could also be reflected in your children as well. Like, truth is, you need to create a system where you can become more organized in your
Mhm,
day so
mhm.
that you can learn how to become a better communicator, so
Yeah,
that you can learn how to be more empathetic, so that you can learn how to budget better, so that
mhm.
you can learn how to be whatever fill in the blank, whatever it needs to be, even if
Yeah,
you are a racist, all right? Like, like you can learn how to not be racist, okay?
yeah,
Whatever it is, like you need organization so that you can give yourself the necessary time and the necessary parameters so that you can grow in a certain area.
yeah.
And go ahead.
No, not like, I was just gonna to tie on the end of that, that we don't wanna confuse, because what we're talking about right now is very different from salvation.
Mhm.
I think a lot of us get confused with the spirituality of purpose and calling, that it's so high up there that we miss it with salvation, where salvation is a free gift from God and we don't have to work for it. But purpose and calling is not the same thing as salvation that is given to us as a free gift. There
Mhm.
is no working for our salvation, but your purpose and your calling is something that you put effort and time into.
Yeah.
And it I love the way that Dr. Peeler puts it. Like he says, God, I believe in a God that can turn nothing into something,
Yeah.
right? But if you can give God something, he can turn that something into legendary.
Mhm.
Like he has that ability to do it. He can make your okay into excellent, but really if you're able to give God good, again, this is nothing about salvation, right? This is about purpose and calling. If you can give God good, right? Like he can do so much more out of it. It's not us trying to limit or expand the ability of God, but
Yeah.
really at the foundation of it is showing God that you are trustworthy enough to handle the greatness status,
Mhm.
in calling a- and in purpose. It has nothing to do with helping God to make a decision, but it has everything to do with when you're in that position, you trust yourself,
Yes.
so that when you're in those meetings, you're making those decisions, right? You're not second guessing yourself.
Yes.
It has everything with doing and building up yourself, so that when God throws you in those positions, those spaces, you trust yourself, to be there, because imposter syndrome is
Yeah.
another purpose killer, and you just talked about that, right? So I just wanted to kind of put that spiritual tone in it to kind of help us understand a little bit.
And I wanna continue in that vein. So I wanna say this. Um, 9 times out of 10, God's not calling you to be a doctor or a lawyer or janitor. God doesn't care about those things.
Hmm.
I wanna like I understand that there are like God called the individuals in the Bible to do those things because it tied into the plan of salvation.
Right.
Okay. We need to realize that we're not Moses. We're not Abraham. We're like the people who they probably said hi to along the way, right? But there are select people. There are select people that God is working to and through to accomplish the plan of salvation.
Hmm.
And unless you have received like some divine revelation from God, where He is saying, "Hey, I am using you
Hmm.
to close out history before my second coming," that means that you're not going to receive like this big aha where God's going to come to you and say,
Right.
"Jared, I want you to be a family therapist. You need to leave Georgia and go to California." Like it's not gonna happen for you. It's not gonna happen for you,
No.
right? It's not gonna happen for you. And so I need you to free yourself. I need you to free yourself because it's not gonna happen like that. It's
Yeah.
not going to. The only people in scripture that God like specifically spoke to in that way were individuals that God was using for the plan of salvation. All right, the plan of salvation to accomplish something that had global implications. Everyone else, there was only one Moses.
One.
Like there were still 600,000 Israelites that he had to look over.
Right.
Right? Like there was only one Joshua.
One.
And there were still several hundreds of thousands of people that Joshua had to lead.
Mm-hmm.
Like those individuals still somehow, some way, they were either in charge of being in the Levitical camp, where they were working in their church, or they were farmers,
Mm-hmm.
or they were in the army, or they were taking care of their homes, because that's what their society was like back in the day. That's what they did. But it wasn't a thing, like they didn't have the freedom that we have now to say,
Right.
oh, I want to be a real estate agent. I want
Right.
to be a lawyer. They didn't have that. They were just faithful. What did they do? They were faithful and trying to live a life that glorified God.
Amen. Yeah. Yeah.
And so understand this, you can glorify God. You can glorify God in whatever, here it is, assignment that you're given. Like your purpose is not to be a doctor. Your assignment is to be an anesthesiologist.
Mm.
And understand this, your assignment will not last forever. Everything has a season.
That's true.
Most people change careers.
Right.
Most people change careers a couple
Right.
of times in our lives.
Right.
And so understand that God likely will not call you to a specific career. If you feel like God has called you to that, by all means, prosper. This message is not for you. This message is for the individual who has been kind of sort of waiting and has been pausing on taking the next step because you're afraid, what if I don't go into the right direction?
Correct.
And all I want to say is, hey, we talked about this in a previous episode when we said stop waiting for God, or stop waiting for what you think is God, and
Right.
move. Make your move. Make your move.
Right.
Make your move.
Yeah.
Like you understand how God works. You understand the type of career that God would call you into, right? If you base it on biblical and Christian values, you're good.
You're good.
Like if you want to if you want to work for a hedge fund, I think you need to figure out what are the values of people who typically work in hedge funds. What type of lifestyles do they typically lead? And you need to see, is this the type of lifestyle that God would want for me?
Correct.
And I just got to say, there are a lot of TV shows and movies about people who work in hedge funds. So you should be able to see the type of lifestyle that they lead.
Correct.
And you should be able to see, does this align with my Christian values? What would Jesus do? And boom. So please don't use your spirituality as a crutch and as a purpose killer. Please don't allow your spirituality to be a purpose killer. Please don't allow your theology, rather, to be a purpose killer.
That's good.
And that's it. That's it.
Good. Man, we appreciate you, bro. We always try to go into topics that we think everyone is dealing with, and especially like that me and you have dealt with. And this is one of those things that we've worked through. I know personally, and individually, but really like when we come together, we kind of talk about these things. So we appreciate everyone. Thank you for tuning into the conversation. We want to just make sure that you you share, and you subscribe. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, where the video clips are on YouTube. Join us on our Instagram page. If you have any comments, if you have any things, if you're like, hey, I disagree with everything that you said, drop it in the comments. And then I guess we
need to respond to those too.
Yes. Yeah. Well, on our Instagram, I think I've responded to every one of the one on Instagram. But just be kind. Like there are some people that are like comment and they're kind of mean. They're like, "What is this nonsense?" And then I'm like, "Are you Christian?" Like you're like responding to. So yeah. Just be kind. Be kind in your comments. But we want to thank you guys for tuning in, liking, sharing, and subscribing
Yes.
to the Two Young Pastors podcast. Until the next one, we'll catch you guys later.